So going live in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Forza Vertical AI podcast. This is a show where we're going to delve into the latest innovations and trends that are shaping the consumer products industry. I'm Andrew Kelleher. I'm the SVP of Marketing at Forza. And today I've got a very exciting episode lined up. I'm actually joined by two of Forza's co-founders, Dominic Dinardo, our CEO, Nick Eales, our CTO. Welcome.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Andy.
Great to have you here. And let's go ahead and get stuck in. So I think a really important topic we want to kick off with here, and something that I know that a lot of our audience is going to be interested in, and maybe Dominic, you can pick this up, is what is the difference between vertical AI and horizontal AI? What is this big thing about vertical AI?
Yeah, so it seems like a little bit of a nuance, but it's very, very important. But let's take a step back. I was reflecting coming onto this podcast today, Andy, that, in 2024, it's like a really dramatic year for news. Right? We've got so much going on all around the world, but I think half the human population is in some sort of general election or something, making decisions from India to France, here in the UK, the United States, obviously, has got a massive election coming up. And all these things are dominating the news and about, discussions about the future of the economy and of our laws and et cetera, et cetera. The funny thing about it is I was thinking, I was reflecting, but meanwhile, the advancement of artificial intelligence every couple of weeks, another major milestone. Like literally, I think last night, Nick put out something about the latest models from OpenAI. It's another step change, another step change. And I think that what I'm trying to do here is contrast. We're all making these big flashy news about general elections. Quietly, there is a technical change going on that is going to change the world we live in an irrevocable, unbelievable way. And, I believe for the better, but also not without challenges. And when you ask the question, what's the difference between horizontal AI and vertical AI? Actually, answering that question to unpick it, it kind of is all about this impact. You see, I remember the first example of horizontal AI that kind of blew me away maybe a year and a half ago. I was actually visiting some family friends, and I was trying to explain AI to somebody. I went to, I think at that time it was Bard, Google Bard, before it became Gemini. And I was like, write a poem for Stephanie. Stephanie likes comedy and tennis and blah, blah, blah. Do it in the style of, I don't know, Shakespeare or something. And out came a very personalized poem, really well written. I remember my friends being completely shocked by the intimacy of this poem that was completely artificially generated in seconds, and yet the quality was kind of like staggering, right? It was all, in fact, it's probably a mistake for me to use that example because it was almost unsettling. And of course, you can use these generative engines to more horizontal purposes, like write a poem, write a story, write an email, generate a marketing microsite. And, writing an email might be useful for banking, or it might be useful for automotive, or it might be useful for the tech industry. These use cases, like write an email is a great example, they can be applied almost ubiquitously anywhere. Vertical AI is very, very different. Vertical AI use cases are very, very specific. So perhaps a good example for people might be thinking about medical use cases where it might be to do with medical diagnosis, not something that is applicable anywhere else, but the consequences and value of that diagnosis are huge. For us, for Forza, we're dedicated to the consumer goods, consumer products industries, food, beverage, healthcare. Like you can see very specific use cases where the application of AI is hugely, hugely relevant, whether it be regarding promotion performance or sales execution, whatever it might be. I'm sure we'll get into it, but it's that specificity, the depth has a disproportionate value impact. That's what vertical AI is all about. It's that specificity that brings value.
That's fantastic. I think that's absolutely clear, and that distinction between the kind of the horizontal use cases and what this can bring to an industry really stands out. And then perhaps Nick, can you elaborate on what we're hearing from some of our consumer goods customers about, where they see the benefit of vertical AI?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Dominic mentioned, vertical AI is deeply specific to the industry you're focusing it on. And for us consumer goods, that means we're hearing from our customers, there's a lot of need for AI around competitive pressures, margin erosion even, complex pricing, and the need to be able to go to market in a much more agile way, and understanding the thousands of SKUs you have, and how you sell those in your promotions. So our customers are really struggling in this kind of pricing and order capture space, but also around the go-to-market strategy and the execution of, where they should be focusing their effort and their time. It's a very, very complex or sophisticated industry, and lots of pressures that affect them. So that's where we're really seeing the value for AI in this space, is to help with those challenges and to improve the efficiencies, to protect the margins, to essentially help them sell better. That's, I think, one of the main advantages of vertical AI in the consumer goods industry. There's lots of others, which I'm sure we'll get onto, but that is the one we're really hearing from our customers as a critical need to make sure that they can, use that effectively.
Brilliant.
I think if I can layer on it what Nick was saying, I had an experience, actually, it was very weak. I was talking to a major soft drinks manufacturer, and we're talking about AI. And I said, you've got to put some time and effort into your future plans about how to use AI. And they were saying yes. And the business sponsor in the meeting said, I would love to give all my sales reps a coach to give them best practices and so forth. And I said, well, do you have like anything documented about how your sales excellence, your processes is today? He said, no, I keep needing to get around to it. I want to do a piece on objection handling. And Nick and I were talking about this during the week. I said, well, have you thought about just like recording it? What do you mean? Well, maybe when you drive home from work, just do a voice memo of what you think all the objection handling techniques are. Do it 2 or 3 trips, get your voice memos, hand it over to your IT team, transcript it, ask an AI engine to take the transcripts and turn it into like a document, take the document, put it, and then we went through a process, and I realized something that's really, really important. I think this is what Nick and our team have done really, really well. To bring all this power to bear, it's kind of like a partnership between us and our customer and partner base, because, I know that soft drinks manufacturer can really achieve what his aspiration is, but it takes like a little bit of a yin and yang, a bit of back and forth to tease it all out. And we're going to probably do that process I just described, actually. And before you know it, everybody in that soft drinks manufacturer up and down the length of the country is going to have the power and know-how of 30 years of sales excellence experience at their fingertips. What's the productivity gain from that for everybody? If you're talking about hundreds of people, in an industry where, sadly, you might get a high churn, high trading issue, it's huge, huge impact.
A fantastic point there, Dom. And I think to play on that point you just made there, we're gonna get into some examples and actually talk some specifics of vertical AI use cases. But before we do that, what I think is really important, and it goes back to your definition of the difference between horizontal and vertical AI, is from a vertical perspective, you've got to understand the users, the personas that you're serving, the pains, the challenges that they have on a day-to-day basis. And so I think almost before you get anywhere near the technology, if you don't have that understanding as a foundation, you really can't deliver vertical AI, and your customers can't consume it in a way that has an impact on the business. So I think what would be great now is, so let's talk a little bit about how a Forza goes at understanding those personas, those challenges. And maybe you could give some examples of your recent sort of trips to the field, going out on rep runs with users, and how that has really aided a Forza's vertical AI journey.
Yeah, sure, let me start. And so one experience actually that springs to mind is I was recently in Lisbon in Portugal, beautiful city, highly recommend going there to do some work. And we did a rep run with with our very first customer, Heineken, and I was like, good to catch up and see it in action. And one of the things that I saw, which was really like kind of revelatory to me, was like our user had their she had an iPad, and excuse me, actually it was Android, I think, and she was like shooting backwards and forwards on the screen, and I have never seen somebody use a Forza that fast. I mean, it was a whirlwind. It was so impressive. But she's taking calls, she's talking to people back and forth. And actually, one of the things that actually like it just hit me was how a power user really uses it kind of applications. And actually, I want to do a little bit of table tennis here, Andy, and ping it back to you because you've coined a really, really good phrase. Not to steal our thunder from marketing later on, but you described it, which was called touchless operations, right? The ability to somehow, get away from um, uh, it could be beautiful screens, but the screens are locked to a data model, and there's a particular flow that's been thought through and tested. But you can't beat show me my next 3 visits for today and give me their phone numbers. Like just talk to a machine and tell me the answer. But you're right. So all of that comes out of the get in the field, go with the users, live in their shoes, understand the frustrations, and just see it, And so it's kind of it's turned into methodology for us, I think,
Brilliant, brilliant. And let's before we go to the examples, let's double down on that concept of touchless operations, because as many of our listeners today will be thinking back to the first episode we did on this with Brett Queener, we actually talked about the whole vertical AI opportunity and really the shifts that we've seen in the enterprise software space from his time, 30 years ago at Siebel Systems into Salesforce, and all of the advances that we've seen in cloud and mobile. I think the point that really resonated from what Brett was saying was it's still, from an applications perspective, for lots of lists and views and clicks and drill downs and updating records, and simple tasks like grabbing a phone number from an account record can still take a couple of minutes because of that flow. And so this kind of paradigm shift to touchless operations is really exciting. And I think vertical AI takes it from a sort of a space age concept to something that, why can't I just ask my phone, the phone number of my next visit? And so maybe a question to Nick. I mean, we've been doing a lot of this with our Forza Studio product for a while now, but when we think about touchless operations, we aren't just bounded by the keyboard anymore. There are lots of other multimodal types of inputs that we can deploy here. Do you want to maybe touch on some of those and what you're most excited about in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this term of touchless operations is what really made me a believer in AI for the enterprise. So come back to Dominic's example before, a year and a half ago, you've got ChatGPT or Bard or whoever it is writing poems for you. Extremely technically impressive. But for a business, what's the real world, use case for that? There's not one really. So back when it first started, it was kind of a party trick, like extremely amazing party trick. But still, when you come to the enterprise space, you come to actually doing some business critical stuff, you can't really kind of put the pieces together to see how that would work. I think now when you start to think about the advancements that have been made and the fact, one of the big advancements in my mind, which is actually turning AI into more of back into a computer, is the ability to call tools or functions, as they're called in different models. That's what really enables this touchless operation. So instead of saying, hey, write a poem, you're saying things like, hey, create a new order for me. And it knows via the tools it has available that it can create a new order using a specific tool. Or you can say, reschedule all my visits and move them into next week. Again, there's a tool for scheduling visits, so it knows it can do that. That's where the power of this really comes into play, because now you've got the models that understand that human speech and can make informed decisions, but they're also given an arsenal of different capabilities to actually do something impactful and value driven for the business. So that's what got really exciting, and that's where touchless operations comes into play. But to go even further to kind of answer your question, traditionally you'd ask questions, you do it through typing, you might be able to just do some dictation or speak to it. But more recently, you can also use image capture to do your analysis, or video capture. You can upload documents. And again, the AI can look at those for context and use that to then drive some sort of action. So one really simple example, or it's not simple, but one really good example is we have lots of customers in the field in traditional markets that still do their business on pen and paper. right? They'll go into a retail store and the store owner will have written down a list of what they want to purchase, right? And they've done that for all the different manufacturers they deal with. So you've got this pen and paper list. And how do you translate that into, your digital environment? How do you do order capture from that? Now, again, traditionally, what you'd have to do is you take a look at the list. You might pull up Excel and write it in there. You might pull up a mobile application and write it in there. Now, with a Forza, you can pull it up and you can input those details extremely efficiently. And if you're a power user like Dominic described, you'll be able to do that pretty quickly using, the user experience we've built. But it's still a case of clicking and typing, and you're going to take several minutes to do that just because you've got to transcribe it all into the application or the format that you want. Now with AI, you can just take a photo of that order note, and AI can look at the order, understand the products on there, match those to the products in your price list, find the customer, and create the order for you just from taking that photo. So that's what we mean by touchless. You've literally taken a photo and you don't touch the screen. You do nothing else. And it will understand the context. It'll understand you're a sales rep and you're taking orders in the field. It'll understand that those are products that have been put in that photo so that it knows to create an order from it. It knows what customer you're speaking to because of your location. It has all of that context and it will do those actions for you without any additional instruction or input from the user. That's just one very specific example, but you can multiply that by 100 for all of the daily occurrences that you see in the consumer goods industry. And that's what I think is really impactful and really exciting, and our customers are really gravitating towards, is that ability to take photos, to upload documents, to just dictate a small request and have hundreds of different tasks get automatically done for you off the back of that. I think that's what I'm really excited about, and it's stopping those power users having to learn 100 different screens and type extremely quickly. It's moving it to the next level. So the future is very bright for vertical AI and for what we're doing in it, I have to say.
It's funny because listening to Nick, I was thinking, actually, I won't give away my age, but a lifetime ago I did a computer science degree. And one of the specialist topics in that degree was called HCI, human computing interaction. And what that was all about was like, here's a form. Do you put the button at the bottom left or the bottom right? Is the font size correct for human interaction? Is it friendly? Are you using the right terminology? And that's obviously all that kind of stuff actually still somewhat relevant today, but kind of pointless if I could walk into a bar, take a photograph of a complex environment, spot a competitor of my whiskey product, and then immediately trigger business actions as a result of the photo. It's gone beyond a human interface because the human didn't spot the competitor, but it was in the photo. It's like it's taking the metaphor to the next level. And I think the consequential productivity impact is massive. And I think that we see this ourselves, and like we're obviously a software company making software for consumer goods companies. But you see, even in a Forza today, like the productivity changes from use of AI tools. And when we're recording this, mid-July 2024, compared to the productivity of mid-July 2023, it's just exponentially different, right?
Absolutely, Dom. And I think you touched on a really interesting point that I definitely want to come to as a focus area, which is a Forza's own use of AI internally, because I think you got to practice what you preach, right? You can't deliver something to a customer if you don't do it internally. But just to dial back one more point there to what Nick made, and to your point as well, you go back 10 years and that process that Nick described there, and we call it the napkin order, that taking a photo of a handwritten order, it would seem like Star Trek, it would seem space age, you wouldn't believe it. And it's done today. So just a call to anyone listening. We are running the Forza Vertical Summer of AI, and the napkin order was the first showcase that we shared, and I have to say continues to be the most popular one. But if you want to see that up close and personal and experience what Nick was talking about, just head over to our website to the Summer of Vertical AI, and you can see that process in action.
Do you remember that Arthur C. Clarke quote? Was it like something like any sufficiently advanced technology would appear like magic to somebody who wasn't prepared for it. It's not magic. This is here now today. It's usable today.
Yep.
Um,
And Dom, you touched on the points of productivity, and I think picking up on Nick's point there, he said we've got users that are very fast. You explained that user you went out in the field where she was very fast using the app, but even the most speedy execution, closing my eyes, I know where to type, I can run through it. You're still taking 2 to 3 minutes to execute most of the tasks in a day. Whereas with the process that Nick described, we're taking that couple of minutes, which is fast, to seconds. And so do you want to talk about maybe just the impact of this productivity wise on the enterprise? I mean, it's game changing.
well, I know exactly what you're talking about because somebody on this podcast wrote a really great deck where they compared traditional applications, Andrew, didn't you, to like modern ones. And then I'm going to tell Andrew, I'm going to take the credit for the story. So I'm going to do the story, but actually all credit to Andrew for actually doing this. But Andrew actually did a study where we look at traditional applications, and I won't name names, but like kind of classic stuff. If I need to find the phone, I need to call the next 3 visits. What do you do? Well, you go to your diary, you find who it's with, you then look up their account, you then look up the phone number, and you traverse. It may be beautiful screens, but you're traversing a data model someone thought of to try to find the phone numbers, like, maybe 3 times. So, like, even if you're good at it, that process will probably honestly take minutes, right? Versus, just verbally saying, show me the phone numbers for my next 3 visits takes like, 10 seconds. And I think that if you think that, excuse me, if you think of similar examples for like through a natural day, the time difference is significant. And actually, your study, I think, showed like something like somewhere between 40% to 50% of actually a working day could actually be gained back by just simply cutting out all that noise. It was actually quite staggering. Like in real life, maybe, oh, that's so, let's just say, well, real life doesn't work like that. What if it was a quarter? It's still like such a phenomenal impact. I think that, and I want to just lead from this to like how, like, somebody who could be listening to this could be skeptical and think like, okay, you guys are a bunch of techies, you think you've got this. Don't think of it as some sort of science fiction thing where some omnipresent godlike thing is going to do your job for you. I think that may indeed happen one day where you have some sort of like master controller of very agentic processes lined up doing it. That may indeed become possible, especially with the advent of quantum computing. But in today's world, think of it much as that my employee is given very easy to use tools that call upon, like, for want of a better word, kind of like butlers to like help you perform tasks. And the speed of each of those individual tasks, the administrative overhead of them is kind of just going to disappear. And so I don't know what the right number to put on this is, but like as your study showed, up to 40% of your day could be saved just from removing noise. It was kind of phenomenal, actually.
I think we're going from a period of where minutes used to be fast in enterprise terms. If you could do something in a minute, that was fast. Hours were long, days and months were longer. But we're moving to this whole paradigm shift where it's seconds now that count, and it's just flipping everything on its head.
Well, I think today, if not in the next year, all business plans will change because we'll think of employees and their productivity in a very different way. What somebody can achieve on their own versus like what they can do today will be very, very different.
Absolutely. And just on that, I think that's a really good divert. And maybe Nick, as the founder of Albert, you could pick this one up. But we practice what we preach at Forza, and we use AI tools internally across the organization, all lines of business. But our newest employee, Albert's someone special that's really adding a lot of impact at the company right now. So maybe do you want to talk a little bit about Albert and how you brought the AI to life at Forza?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been using AI to Forza for ages now, right? All of our different departments use it for different use cases and reasons. So you've got I don't know, sales and marketing using it to generate content that can then be fine-tuned. You've got engineering using it to look up code snippets. You've got our product team and our SEs using it to create images for demonstrations. So we've been using it in anger for absolutely ages. But again, the one thing that AI has always not been great at is just the contextual knowledge of your own business. So we decided, much like we're doing with our customers, and we're building vertical AI for consumer goods, why couldn't we do something similar for us as a software company, right? And the reason we could do this, and the reason it's been so beneficial to us, is not just because of what it does, which I'll come on to, but it's also the speed in which you can do it. We didn't have to spend months undertaking a massive project to kind of build out this software, a Forza-based AI. Instead, it took us a matter of hours to put it together. So it's something we could do on a whim. We could put it into our system and get real value from it without having to make a massive, financial decision for the company. So what we ended up doing was we built an AI agent. We affectionately named it Albert, which I think was a suggestion of one of our employees. And Albert has knowledge about everything of Forza. Albert can look at our user guide. It can look at support cases. It can look at our price list. It can look at customer case studies. It has a bunch of anonymized information in there that basically gives it the best all-round knowledge of our company out of anyone. And we took Albert and we plugged it into our Slack, our communication platform. And now anybody can actually just mention Albert and ask a question, and it will give you a detailed response about that thing with a very, very high accuracy, because it's using the actual knowledge that we've seeded it with from a Forza. So I've actually just got the channel open here to give you some real life examples. So we've got one of our employees asking Albert to give a list of Forza's competitors, which it does pretty easily. We've got a sales rep here asking about what's our top capabilities in the TPM space. We've got somebody asking about the product roadmap. We've got an engineer asking it to write a little bit of code to look at a certain area of our database. So the uses are kind of wide ranging, but extremely specific to us as a business and to us as a software company. So we've seen massive impact from it. We launched it, I think, maybe a week ago, and we've had already hundreds of questions come in that they've helped with. So it's extremely good and extremely impressive for only a few hours of work, what it's able to actually do. So, if we were to spend a few more days, a couple of weeks, kind of fine tuning it and making it even better, seeding it with more information, I can only imagine how good it's going to get. So it's something that's extremely close to our hearts because it just works and it's providing huge value to us. But also it's a good kind of practice what you preach situation, in that we're using AI, we understand the pitfalls of it, we understand how to configure it, and we take all of that knowledge, all of that internal knowledge, and use that when we create our product for our customers. So all of this Albert expertise, we are producing similar content and similar type use cases, but for the consumer goods industry, and that's what our customers can purchase and use. So we're really excited about that as well.
I think it's funny actually because we're recording this. I think you're right. It's exactly it's just less than 1 week. Did you launch it on a Friday a week ago, Nick?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's amazing is the usage exploded. I mean, if you switched off Albert, God forbid, but say we did, I think you'd get an employee revolt. Like, I'll tell you something else which is kind of funny, which I never would have thought about in advance. I reckon Albert is one of the most popular people in the company. People genuinely seem to like him, like it's a thing, right? It's an it, right? But you see people respond to it almost like they're talking to one of their colleagues. Hey, thanks, Albert. Like they think Albert's a person. It's quite funny.
He's certainly more popular than me already.
I'm sure that's not true.
But Nick, to pick up on, I think you made a really, key point there in terms of this paradigm shift. We talked about user execution going from minutes to seconds, but you just talked about there of almost development and bringing new capabilities to market that potentially could have taken months before to hours. And so I think that there's not just this shift in productivity from a user perspective, but it's in the capability space as well, right?
Yeah, so there's kind of different levels of it. So Albert specifically, we're using OpenAI for that, and we've got some specific instructions, data, kind of some proprietary stuff that we've seeded it with. That's very reasonably easy to do and quick to do, so a matter of hours. We've then used a point and click integration tool to connect it to Slack, so all of that can be done very, very quickly. There's no reason other companies can't do this. With a little bit of know-how, you have to know how to tweak and tune it for your business. But that's really kind of I'd say the level one. That's where you want to start. Level two and level three which is what we're building into our product and bringing to our customers, is having firstly the tools that I mentioned before. So the tools to go and interrogate real-time data. Albert is only using kind of historical documents that we've preceded it with. Actually be able to go and interrogate real-time data and use that in your responses. That's kind of where you take to the next level. And then the other thing that you start getting to level three is when you have specific agents that handle specific tasks. So Albert's kind of a general knowledge purpose agent that can kind of do a little bit of everything. So like jack of all trades, master of none. Whereas what we're building into our product are specific sales agents, visit scheduling agents, promotion optimization agents. All of these will have specific instructions, tools, and capabilities for their specific remits. And they get orchestrated based on what the user's asking for. So if the user asks for something about promotions, it's going to get routed to that promotion agent. Unbeknownst to them, they'll just think they're speaking to the same AI. When you start to get into that level, there is a bit more of a time sink because you need some coordination. You need to understand the intricacies of how it all fits together. And of course, you want to build out a compelling user experience for talking to that AI as well. You don't want to just stick it into Slack like we've done for Albert. So that's where we're kind of building the scaffolding around these great AI models and really fine-tuning and tweaking them and using all of that to build out what we're kind of calling the vertical AI of Forza product. But let's not diminish what you can do at level one, because Albert has been fantastic for us, and that took a few hours. And I think every company should be doing that. But if they want to get really integrated into their business processes, into their data, that's where you need to look for a vendor like a Forza or someone else, depending on your industry, and use what they've kind of built in terms of that framework to really pull out the insights and the actions from your data.
Brilliant.
I would go as far to say that if you take what Nick's talking about, you think about it, your Forza sales rep will be, in my opinion, 33% more effective than somebody who doesn't have a Forza by the end of the year. At least.
Yep.
We know this from our own employee performance.
And just on that, I think that's a really nice way to bring this home. If if a company is on now listening in any industry, but let's focus on the consumer products industry right now, and without doubt they're going to be talking about this at a board level, a leadership level. Everybody wants to understand how they can reap the benefits of AI. What would your advice be, Dominic, to just getting started?
Be brave. Stay on it because it's changing quickly. Be brave. You got to try things. Call us.
There you go. Call us, and we'll make sure we'll put the links in the podcast post. And
then just maybe a little bit for light relief, if you want inspiration ideas, there was the what's the web page you've put up, Andy, with all the use cases that you
yeah. So I'll make sure that I drop a link to that in the across all popular podcast platforms and YouTube. But yeah, we'll include the link to the Forza Summer of Vertical AI. Even if you Google that, you'll find that there. And 3 a week now. So you heard Nick talk about the napkin order, but that's just the start. So 3 times a week, we are dropping examples of vertical AI for the consumer products industries as innovative as the napkin order, different touchless operations and experiences of all sorts of use cases that can add real value to your business. So as a call to action, I'd say, yeah, please make sure that you take a look at that and reach out and ask questions and get started on your journey. So with that, I want to thank all of our listeners. I want to thank Dominic and Nick for tuning into this podcast. Hope you've enjoyed today's discussion. This is just one in the series of the Forza Vertical AI podcast, so stay tuned for more episodes. We look forward to working with you, exploring opportunities together. So until next time, please take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Take care.